be tolerant with others, and strict with yourself. Have you ever had the experience of feeling as though you are constantly running on empty because you are too busy making sure that everyone else's cup is full? You feel as though you are the person that everyone turns to for solutions to their problems, but when you look around for someone to fill your cup, you find nothing but crickets. Don't you think it's a familiar sound? This is the point at which we come across an age-old truth, one that has been around since the time of Stoicism, but nevertheless, it is just as pertinent today as it was back then. Stoicism is not just about enduring pain or difficulty, rather. It is about discovering the incredible strength that comes from knowing when to say no, when to prioritize yourself, and how to truly be there for others without losing yourself in the process. Stoicism is a way of life not just about enduring pain or hardship. Understanding how to avoid setting yourself on fire in order to keep other people warm is a skill that must be mastered. Are you curious? These ancient Stoic principles can revolutionize the way you approach kindness, generosity, and yes, even self-care. Today, we are going to delve deep into how these principles can revolutionize your approach to these things. Continue reading if you have ever had the experience of feeling as though you are giving away too much of who you are, or if you are curious about how Stoicism can assist you in finding a healthier balance in your life. This is for you, my friend. It is my sole request that you refrain from skipping this video in any way, shape, or form. Because you are here, you should think of yourself as being distinct from the majority. Put yourself in the category of exceptions. Act as if you are one, and make sure that you do not skip any of the content. Imagine this: you are the person that everyone relies on, the one who always agrees to their requests, does favors for them, and is always willing to lend a helping hand. Isn't it a comforting feeling? Becoming the person who everyone turns to for help and who fixes everything for everyone else. However, here's the kicker: it's almost as if you're giving away pieces of yourself, one by one, until one day you reach for something to give and discover that there's nothing left. When all of a sudden, the tables are turned and you find yourself in a position of need, you take a moment to look around and realize that you are isolated. How come? Due to the fact that you have completely given it away. It is in this context that the Stoic philosophy, which was passed down by philosophers such as Marcus Aurelius, comes into existence. He never failed to stress the significance of taking care of oneself. He held the belief that we are unable to be of assistance to other people if we do not first concentrate on taking care of ourselves. Through his argument, he would contend that our own well-being serves as the basis upon which we can construct our capacity to assist other people. In the absence of it, everything else falls apart. Let us use the example of two neighbors who have gardens to illustrate this point in a way that is both beautiful and effective. One neighbor takes the initiative to tend to their own garden first, making certain that it is in good health and flourishing. Because they take such good care of their garden, they have an abundance that they are willing to share with others. The other neighbor, on the other hand, is so preoccupied with tending to the gardens of everyone else that they fail to pay attention to their own. In the course of time, their garden will eventually become overgrown, wilted, and less productive. It is essential to take care of your own garden before you can effectively assist other people with theirs. This is the lesson that can be learned from this story. This does not imply that you should not assist other people. When it comes to acts of kindness, Stoicism teaches us about maintaining a balance and being sustainable. It asks us to consider whether or not my assistance can be maintained over time, and am I also taking care of my own health and well-being? Epictetus is credited with saying, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This sage advice serves to remind us that we have the ability to say no when it is required of us in order to guarantee that our acts of kindness do not come at the expense of our own well-being and contentment. An additional prominent figure in Western philosophy, Plato, emphasized the significance of being aware of one's own identity. When it comes to being overly generous, knowing oneself means acknowledging our limitations and being aware of the fact that genuine assistance and kindness are only attainable when we are in a position of strength, not depletion. And let us not forget Carl Jung, a giant in the field of psychology, who once said, "Who looks outside dreams who looks inside." Awakens this statement encourages us to look inward and makes certain that we are not wasting our energy on external demands at the expense of our inner well-being. It was the Stoic philosophers, such as Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus, who advocated for the concept of purity of action, which means doing the right thing for its own sake, without seeking any reward or recognition for doing so. More specifically, Seneca had a lot to say about the concept of generosity. He was of the opinion that genuine generosity does not seek recognition, rather. It is simply the act of giving, because it is the socially acceptable thing to do. He said, "We should give as we would receive, cheerfully, quickly, and without hesitation, for there is no grace in a benefit that sticks to the fingers. Imagine giving just to see the joy on someone's face, without any hidden agenda or silent tally of who owes whom. How would you feel about that?" It is in this way that Stoic generosity is at its core. It is about giving from a place of abundance, which is not necessarily an abundance of material wealth, but rather an abundance of spirit. We are not truly giving when we give with the expectation of receiving something in return, rather. We are trading, and if we are being completely honest, life is far too rich and complicated to be reduced to a simple transaction. When it comes to virtues, this philosophy fits in perfectly with what Aristotle had to say about them. It was his belief that the true meaning of virtue is to derive pleasure from the acts of virtue themselves, rather than from the rewards that may be bestowed upon them by others. The Stoic perspective on generosity is perfectly aligned with this stance. It is about discovering happiness in the act of giving, in the knowledge that you have made a difference in the life of another person, no matter how small that difference may be. Plato placed a strong emphasis on the significance of maintaining our highest ideals in all of our actions, regardless of the consequences. Giving because it is in line with who we aspire to be, rather than because we are anticipating receiving something in return, is the approach that we take to generosity. Being true to our ideals and exemplifying the virtues that we hold in the highest regard is the focus here. In addition, there is the psychological perspective, which was brilliantly articulated by Carl Jung. Jung discussed the shadow and the persona, which are the aspects of ourselves that we reveal to the outside world and those that we keep hidden from this world. It is through Jung's work that we are encouraged to integrate all aspects of ourselves, which includes recognizing the joy that we experience when we give without expecting anything in return. Authenticity and self-integration are both profoundly embodied in this act. Epictetus serves as a reminder that we have control over our actions and intentions, but not over the results of those actions. Therefore, when we give, we do so from a position of control, making the conscious decision to be generous and to show kindness without giving any consideration to the potential consequences that may befall us. This gives one more power. Our attention is transformed from what the world owes us to what we are able to contribute to the world as a result of this. Having said that, here's the thing: giving without expecting anything in return is not only a noble act, but it's also liberating. It liberates us from the resentment that comes from having our expectations not met and the resentment that comes from feeling used. Our lives, as well as the lives of those around us, are enriched as a result of this spirit of generosity, which is kept alive and well by it. This does not deplete us, rather, it fills us with the profound and everlasting joy of having made a positive difference, regardless of how small that difference may have been. One gets the impression that everyone wants a piece of us in today's world, which is always connected and always on. This includes our time, our energy, and our attention. It is possible for it to become overwhelming. Because it places such a strong emphasis on personal virtue and inner peace, Stoicism teaches us that it is extremely important to be able to say no nevertheless. Let us make it perfectly clear that this is not about abandoning those who are in need. Taking care of our own health is very important if we want to be able to provide genuine assistance to other people. Let us take into consideration the heartwarming tale of a mother who, out of love and concern for her daughter, did everything for her. Despite the fact that this may appear to be the very definition of parental love, it actually had unintended consequences. Unfortunately, the daughter was never taught how to navigate the world on her own. It was not until after the mother had passed away that the daughter was subjected to the challenge of standing on her own 2 feet. This story, despite its apparent simplicity, exemplifies a profound truth: receiving an excessive amount of assistance can impede personal development. This serves as a reminder from the Stoics that it is extremely important to encourage independence in other people. By establishing boundaries, we are not being indifferent or uncaring, rather, we are encouraging the people we care about to discover their own ability to persevere and find strength in themselves. The importance of self-discipline and the wisdom of understanding what is within our control was strongly emphasized by Marcus Aurelius, who spoke extensively on the subject. Putting his teachings into practice with regard to the idea of boundaries requires acknowledging that although we are able to provide support, we are not able to live the lives of other people. It is about finding a middle ground between providing assistance and enabling others, making sure that our assistance is truly beneficial and not a crutch that prevents individuals from growing as individuals. The ancient Greek philosopher Seneca advocated for the importance of self-sufficiency and cautioned against the dangers of dependence. Seneca taught that true happiness comes from within, not from external circumstances or the actions of others. By setting boundaries, we teach others to rely on their own inner resources, just as Seneca taught that true happiness should come from within. Aristotle's idea of the golden mean, which entails locating the morally acceptable middle ground between 2 extremes, is applicable in this context as well. Setting boundaries involves striking a balance between our desire to be helpful and the need to maintain our own health and happiness. This is the context in which we are discussing setting boundaries. It is a form of practical wisdom, also known as phronesis, that directs us to make choices that are beneficial, not only for ourselves, but also for the people with whom we interact. The act of establishing boundaries is a manifestation of Plato's emphasis on the well-ordered soul, which represents a soul that brings harmony to the various components of the self. The process of defining what we will and will not accept allows us to establish an internal order, which in turn ensures that our rational, spirited, and appetitive aspects are consistent with one another. Because we have achieved this harmony within ourselves, we are able to interact with the outside world in a manner that is more effective and balanced. From the point of view of depth psychology, Carl Jung may have proposed that the process of individuation, which is the process of becoming one's true self, includes the establishment of boundaries as an essential component. Not only are we able to safeguard our psychic energy by defining the boundaries between ourselves and others, but we are also able to inspire others to embark on their own journey of self-discovery. There is a crucial lesson that many of us learn the hard way, and that is the risk of being perceived as always available and always ready to drop everything for other people. One who follows this path may experience feelings of being undervalued and taken for granted. It's almost as if you're the dependable old car that everyone anticipates will start in the morning without ever giving any thought to the upkeep that it needs. However, this is the point at which the change takes place, a moment of transformation that Stoicism and its contemporary interpretations can guide us through to a beautiful conclusion. When we start to establish boundaries and to say no, in a confident manner when the situation calls for it, we are the ones who initiate a significant change. This is not simply about turning down requests or denying assistance, rather. It is about demonstrating a profound respect for our own time and energy for ourselves. This is something that Marcus Aurelius would most likely consider to be an act of self-respect. In this context, the decision to set boundaries is a judgment that our peace and well-being are of the utmost importance. He's famously said, "It's not the actions of others that disturb us, but our judgments about those actions." Seneca provides an insightful perspective that fits in perfectly with the concept of establishing boundaries. He taught that true freedom originates from within, from having complete control over one's own being. We exercise this freedom by deciding when and how to say no, thereby demonstrating that our time and energy are our own to allocate and not subject to the whims of the demands of other people. It is likely that Epictetus would remind us that although we are unable to control how other people perceive our actions, we are able to control our reactions to those actions. Establishing boundaries is a practice that helps us concentrate on the things that are under our control, which are our own actions and reactions. It's possible that Plato would look at the act of establishing boundaries through the lens of his theory of forms, which suggests that the ideal form of helpfulness does not equate to offering limitless availability. It is more about providing assistance in a manner that is not only sustainable but also respects the integrity and well-being of the person providing the assistance. When viewed from the point of view of analytical psychology, Carl Jung may have suggested that the establishment of boundaries is an essential component of individuation, which is the process of arriving at one's full potential. A crucial component of both psychological well-being and personal growth is the process of defining who we are in relation to other people, which is accomplished by establishing our boundaries. Therefore, the act of beginning to establish boundaries is a declaration of our perceived value. This action does not have the effect of making us less helpful or caring. Rather, it is a message to the world that I value my time and energy, and you should too. On the contrary, it enables us to provide assistance when it is truly needed, without allowing feelings of resentment or exhaustion to cloud our intentions. Rather than merely being required, it is about being respected. This transformation not only liberates us, but it also teaches others to respect our time and energy in a much more subtle way. Because of our boundaries, others are able to learn how to interact with us in a manner that respects both our contributions and our limits. This is a lesson in mutual respect, a street that goes in both directions. It is important to keep in mind that establishing boundaries is not an indication of weakness or selfishness. Rather, it is a dynamic declaration of self-respect and an essential step toward achieving healthy and balanced relationships. When we demonstrate that we value our own time and energy, we are teaching others to do the same. Not only does this change improve our sense of self-worth, but it also increases the level of respect that we receive from those who are in our immediate vicinity. As we move forward, let us take this knowledge with us and embrace the power that comes from being aware of and asserting our own worth. The question is, after we have traversed the diverse landscapes of Stoicism and investigated the nuances of kindness, boundaries, and self-care, what is the essence that we are left to hold? In all honesty, it is a profound realization, one that not only reshapes our actions but also our very approach to life. Stoicism, with its ancient roots and ageless wisdom, is not a call to distance ourselves from the world or to harden our hearts against the requirements of other people. On the contrary, it is an invitation to engage with the world in a more profound and prudent manner, with a crystal clear understanding of our own boundaries and a steadfast commitment to our own inner peace. Within the context of today's fast-paced and frequently demanding world, this philosophy teaches us a balance that is both uncommon and valuable. It demonstrates to us that genuine generosity is not about giving until we are left with nothing. Rather, it is about giving in a way that enriches both the person who gives and the person who receives. This is a form of generosity that can be maintained over time because it is founded on a profound awareness of our own requirements and a sincere desire to fulfill the requirements of other people. To live a Stoic life means to navigate the delicate dance that is the relationship between caring for others and caring for both ourselves and others. Having the awareness that we cannot pour from an empty cup and that our capacity to be there for others is contingent on how well we take care of our own well-being is the first step in this process. All of these Stoic sages, including Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, were onto something profound. They realized that inner peace is not a state of being that is achieved passively, but rather is the result of making choices that are conscious and deliberate regarding how we interact with the world and where we establish our boundaries. It is about giving without attaching our happiness to the results of our actions or to the approval of other people. It is about finding joy in the act of giving. Stoicism instructs us to find fulfillment in the knowledge that we have acted in accordance with our principles, that we have contributed to the world in a manner that is true to our values and respects our limitations, and that we feel that we have accomplished this. When we live our lives according to these Stoic principles, we create a ripple effect, which is perhaps the most beautiful part of the situation. A model for others to follow is the way in which we live our lives, which is founded on wisdom and respect for ourselves. By demonstrating that it is possible to be generous without becoming martyrs, we demonstrate that it is possible to be kind without losing ourselves. Through our actions, we motivate those around us to discover their own equilibrium, to safeguard their inner tranquility, while simultaneously opening their hearts to the world. So, what should we learn from all of this? An invitation to live with bravery and compassion, with a keen awareness of both our own needs and the needs of others, is what this is all about. The encouragement to establish boundaries that enable us to be present and genuine in our acts of kindness is a form of that encouragement. Stoicism does not involve isolating oneself from the world, rather, it involves engaging with the world in a more comprehensive manner, with a clear-eyed comprehension of what it means to live a good life. As we come to the end of this journey, it is important to keep in mind that the path of Stoicism is not one of seclusion, but rather of profound engagement with the broader world. To be able to extend our kindness and generosity without losing ourselves in the process, it is necessary to cultivate an inner sanctuary of peace from which we can do so. This age-old knowledge, which is still extremely relevant in the modern world, encourages us to live our lives to the fullest, to embrace the delicate balance that exists between giving and preserving, between being there for others and honoring our own needs. Now, as we contemplate these ageless teachings, I would like to extend an invitation to you to investigate further. You will see suggested videos that delve deeper into the art of living well, into finding that perfect harmony between the demands of the world and the whisperings of our souls. These videos will be displayed on the screen. As we navigate the beautiful complexity of life with wisdom, courage, and a heart that knows no bounds, let us continue to grow together, to inspire and be inspired, and to take inspiration from one another. I would like to express my gratitude to you for including me in this moment and for being an essential component of the Stoic thinking.